My husband wanted to add another woman into our relationship who was much younger than us. So I decided to show our family how creepy and manipulative he was, and then divorced him. Hey, everyone. I'm here to share a story that changed my life and helped me recognize my worth. I hope it resonates with someone out there. So, let's rewind a bit. My husband, Jake, and I had been married for nearly 10 years. We were the quintessential couple, or so I thought. We had our ups and downs, like any couple, but I believed we were in a good place. We had a comfortable home, a lovely dog named Max, and a solid routine. But then, out of nowhere, Jake approached me with an idea that turned my world upside down. One evening, after dinner, Jake casually mentioned that he thought we should spice things up a bit in our marriage. I laughed it off, thinking he was joking. But he wasn't. He went on to say that he was feeling restless and that his sex drive was much higher than mine. I was taken aback. I thought we were fine. I mean, we had our intimate moments, but they had slowed down a bit as we got older. I figured that was normal. Then he dropped the bombshell. He wanted to add another woman into our relationship. A third, as he called her. He said it would be exciting, and it would help him feel fulfilled. I was shocked and hurt. I couldn't believe he would even suggest something like that. I asked him if he was serious, and he assured me he was. He even had someone in mind, a much younger woman from his work. I felt my heart sink. It wasn't just the proposal that bothered me. It was the fact that he thought I would go along with it. I told him I needed time to think, but deep down I knew I couldn't accept this. I felt betrayed, manipulated, and utterly confused. Over the next few days, I tried to process what he had suggested. I spoke to a few close friends who were equally horrified. They encouraged me to stand my ground and not to let him pressure me into something I didn't want. One friend suggested I show my family what was happening to get their perspective and support. I thought that was a good idea, but I also wanted to demonstrate just how creepy and manipulative Jake was being. So I devised a plan. I invited my parents over for dinner, and I knew I had to be strategic about this. I casually brought up the topic of relationships and how they evolve over time. My parents shared their experiences, and then I took a deep breath and told them about Jake's proposal. I watched their faces go from casual interest to shock and disbelief. My mom's eyes widened, and my dad's jaw dropped. They couldn't believe it. I explained how Jake felt he needed more excitement, and that he thought bringing another woman into our marriage would solve that. I could see the concern in their eyes, and it was comforting to know they had my back. They expressed how unhealthy and manipulative that sounded. After dinner, I encouraged my parents to talk to Jake. I wanted to confront him with the truth, and I thought having my family there would help. I knew it would be hard for him to dismiss their concerns. When they arrived, I could see the tension in the air. I introduced them, and it was clear Jake was on the defensive right away. He tried to downplay the situation, saying it was just an idea, but my parents weren't having it. They called him out on how disrespectful it was to even suggest such a thing. My mom asked him how he would feel if I wanted to bring another man into our marriage. He stammered and tried to justify his reasoning, but my dad wasn't having it. He told Jake that he needed to respect me and our marriage, not treat it like a game. It was a powerful moment. I felt empowered by my parents' support, and for the first time, I saw Jake for who he really was. His dismissive attitude and insistence that I should be okay with this arrangement made me realize how little he valued my feelings. After that confrontation, I knew I had to make a decision. I spent a few sleepless nights thinking about what I wanted. I realized that I deserved a partner who respected me and my boundaries, not someone who would try to manipulate me into accepting something so hurtful. So, I made the hardest decision of my life. I filed for divorce. I told Jake that I couldn't be with someone who didn't respect me or our marriage. He was furious and tried to convince me to reconsider, but I stood my ground. I had finally found my voice. The divorce process was tough, but with the support of my family and friends, I got through it. I learned so much about myself during that time. I learned that I am strong, worthy, and deserving of love that doesn't come with strings attached. In the end, I realized that Jake's suggestion wasn't about spicing things up. It was about his own selfish desires. I am now in a much healthier relationship with someone who values me for who I am, and I'm grateful for the lessons I learned along the way. If you find yourself in a similar situation, please remember that you deserve respect and love. Don't let anyone manipulate you into something you don't want. You are worth so much more. Thanks for reading my story. On to the next story. I found a secret credit card from my husband which he had maxed out on multiple strip clubs and OF accounts. What's the best way to approach a situation like this? Hey everyone, I'm reaching out because I'm in a pretty tough situation and could really use some advice. A few weeks ago, I was going through some old files in our home office, trying to declutter and organize. I stumbled upon a small envelope tucked away in the back of a drawer. It was addressed to my husband, but it didn't look like any regular mail. Curiosity got the better of me, and I opened it up. Inside was a credit card that I had never seen before, along with a statement that made my heart drop. The The card was maxed out, and as I flipped through the statement, I saw charges from multiple strip clubs and several OF accounts. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. My mind raced with questions. How long had this been going on? Was he hiding it from me? Had I been so oblivious to his actions? My husband and I have been married for 5 years, and while we've had our ups and downs, I always thought we had a strong and honest relationship. We've talked about finances openly, and I had no idea he was keeping this from me. I felt betrayed and hurt, but I also knew that I needed to approach this carefully. For the next few days, I tried to process everything. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but I also couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. I spent hours on Reddit, reading stories similar to mine, trying to find a way to approach the situation. I considered confronting him right away, but I didn't want to do it in a way that would lead to a huge blowout fight. Instead, I decided to gather more information. I started paying closer attention to his behavior. He was acting a bit distant, but I chalked it up to work stress. I began to notice small changes. He was spending more late nights at the office and seemed less interested in our usual routines. It was painful to watch the man I loved pull away from me, and I felt like I was losing him to whatever world he was indulging in. After a week of agonizing over how to approach him, I finally decided to sit him down. I chose a quiet evening when we were both home, and I made sure the atmosphere was calm. I cooked his favorite dinner, lighting some candles to set a relaxed mood. I wanted to create a space where we could talk openly without distractions. As we sat down to eat, my heart raced. I knew I had to bring it up, but I didn't want to accuse him outright. So I started with a gentle approach. Hey, I found something in the office the other day that I wanted to talk to you about. His expression shifted slightly, and I could tell he was nervous. I took a deep breath and continued. I found a credit card statement that had some charges I wasn't expecting. I watched as his face paled, and I could see the realization hit him. He opened his mouth to speak, but I held up my hand. Please, just let me finish. I explained how I felt, hurt, confused, and betrayed. I told him I wanted to understand why he felt the need to seek out these experiences outside of our marriage. I emphasized that this wasn't just about the money, it was about trust and intimacy. I wanted to know if there was something missing in our relationship that led him to this. He looked down at his plate, and for a moment, I thought he might not respond. Finally, he sighed heavily and began to speak. He admitted that he had been feeling lost and disconnected from me over the past year. He explained that he had turned to these outlets as a way to cope with his feelings of inadequacy and loneliness. It broke my heart to hear him say that. We had both been so focused on our careers and daily responsibilities that we had neglected our relationship. He expressed regret for not communicating his feelings and for trying to find solace in such unhealthy ways. It was a long conversation filled with tears and raw honesty. We both realized that we had been drifting apart without even noticing. After that night, we made a pact to work on our relationship together. We started scheduling regular date nights and set aside time to talk about our feelings openly. It wasn't easy, and there were moments when I still felt the sting of betrayal, but we were committed to rebuilding our trust. In the weeks that followed, we both sought counseling, individually and as a couple. It was a tough journey, but we learned to communicate better and understand each other's needs. I also encouraged him to seek healthier outlets for his feelings, and he began exploring new hobbies and interests that didn't involve escapism. I'm sharing this story because I know how painful it can be to find something like this in a relationship. If you ever find yourself in a similar situation, remember that communication is key. Approach it with empathy and an open heart. It's easy to jump to conclusions, but understanding the why behind someone's actions can lead to healing and growth. Today, we're in a much better place. Our relationship is stronger than ever, and we're learning to appreciate each other again. It's a journey, but I'm grateful for the lessons we've learned along the way. What did you think of these stories? Let me know your thoughts about them in the comments, and thanks for listening.